Dave, welcome to Exchange Y HQ. Welcome to my kitchen for a coffee with. Lovely to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
No, and you're very welcome. And I'm excited to chat today. And we're going to talk about sport, which I'm very excited about. I don't get to do this very often. First off, give us a little overview of yourself, what you do at Two Circles.
Okay, cool. So to begin with, Two Circles is a sports and entertainment marketing business, and we help our clients grow their audiences and revenues. And we do that by knowing fans best. And so we work with our clients to truly understand more about their fans in terms of the things that they do, the events that they attend, what they buy, and the channels that they respond better to. And then we use that and turn that into more growth. At Two Circles, we have clients globally, about over 900 clients globally that use our platforms and solutions, including the likes of Amazon, the NFL, UEFA, Visa, Red Bull, just to name a few. And our mission at Two Circles is to essentially help people find, connect with, and spend more time with the things that they enjoy in sports and entertainment. And if we believe if we do that and we are successful in doing that, we believe that those industries will be able to grow even more. And with me myself as the programmatic lead at Two Circles, my remit is to oversee the global strategy and execution of programmatic. So that what that looks like is overseeing our in-house capability, building that even more, whilst working with key partners within the ecosystem and educating our clients and the internal teams. So I would say my role is as much adtech and operations as much as it is education. Ensuring that people have an understanding of the value and benefit of programmatic, not only in the short term, but in the long term as well. So understanding the commercial viability and the strategic viability as well.
Nice, excellent. Well, again, thanks very much for joining me. What coffee have you gone for this morning?
Today I've gone for a mocha, but honestly, the only reason why is because I'm not the biggest fan of coffee. But if you introduce chocolate to it, I'm interested. So
nice.
You've got me there.
Excellent choice then. Good. Well, thank you very much for coming in and having a coffee with me. So there's loads to chat about in the sports arena and programmatic. There's loads for us to dig into. First off, do you reckon sports brands are really taking advantage of programmatic and what the possibilities are for them, and how can that kind of develop?
Well, in my perspective, it does depend who you are, but in my perspective, I've had the pleasure of working, with brands and rights holders that are very much advanced in their programmatic journey, so to speak, and those who are just kind of getting started. Overall, I think that, with programmatic specifically in sport, we've started to really get our feet settled in, and, it's an exciting time. I would say, over the last 5 years, given that time period, since COVID and the lockdown and things like that, when it comes to how fans consume sport, it's evolved into like a hybrid model between, live and digital. With the in some situations, in some leagues, we've seen attendance, increase post-COVID and pre-COVID, and some not as much. But with the proliferation of technology, specifically with streaming, there's now a multitude of touch points for brands to reach and speak to fans. And programmatic media, it essentially fits the mold in being able to match that user journey because it's very much omnichannel. And so I think sports at this point in time, it's a great place to be in terms of tech and programmatic, because there are three main components in my mind that I see is the fans, data, and the technology. And the next step is the education. Again, understanding that, in order for it to work as well as it can, think long term and not just a short term campaign. So I think we're in a really good place at this point in time. We're really getting started, I would say.
Yeah, I guess it's like the streaming revolution is really changing what's possible for sports teams and sports leagues in particular. We've seen, $7 billion for the UFC rights is it's a massive deal to show how valuable sports are to streaming giants and stuff. And like you say, that kind of brings in a lot more touch points and a lot more opportunities for programmatic. How have you seen the sphere, like the sporting arena, grow in terms of TV rights, in terms of omnichannel? How is that developing for you?
Well, I think with omnichannel, it's grown significantly because there's just so many different touch points available in the programmatic space. So from a technology perspective, all the capabilities there for brands and rights holders, I do think there sometimes there's a bit of hesitance to try these new and emerging environments. And I would, encourage them to test and learn over time, because there's so much availability in terms of attention, which is, you know, the metric the currency that everyone's really after right now.
Yeah.
And so, you know, with CTV, in the UK specifically, it is somewhat fragmented at this point in time. There's so much inventory out there, but again, the difficulty and challenge is trying to find, you know, the right inventory sources and things like that. But it is available. And then from another perspective, you know, talking about omnichannel with digital out of home, audio as well. There's so much availability there and so much that you can do, but it's about understanding what it is you're trying to achieve as a business and as a brand in order to really execute on those channels. But it's such an exciting place to be in, but having that understanding of what to do and how to do it, I think will really help these brands move forward.
Yeah, I think sport has like a natural advantage in the streaming and entertainment arena because it's narrative driven, like we've seen from the success of Drive to Survive with F1. We've seen how, and even, you know, the Wrexham documentary on Disney, we've seen how it's like the passion of the fan bases and the audiences really drive these stories, which I always find fascinating. And like you say, like now Programmatic is offering ways to interact and give those audiences more of what they crave from their teams and brands. Who's doing it well, and how can sports brands really take advantage here?
That's a great question, and I would say that there could be a lot to learn from iGaming operators, simply because they are data rich, and the business model essentially, it's necessary for them to have high precision, high frequency messaging to their fans and consumers in order for them to be successful. There's natural synergy between you know, iGaming, sports betting and sports, simply because the fans are passionate, they're in love with the players, the teams and things like that. And then if now a fan is also, you know, sports betting, they're now invested. And so there's natural synergy there, and I feel like these iGaming operators, they understand that in order for the fans to consistently, you know, convert, so to speak, they have to speak to them in a manner that allows them to understand what it is that they have on offer and how to convert. So for example, these iGaming operators, they know, you know, which fans respond better to different media channels. They understand the different touch points that they have at hand and understand which frequency to measure them at. So, and it's also about speaking to them in the right language, you know, because a lot of creative sometimes just speaks at the fan or the consumer, but rather than to them and with them. And so I feel like, in my experience, iGaming operators have that knowledge and understanding of what to do and how to do it. And it's simply because they have so much data. And I'm sure, as you know, first-party data is really key for success. So I think that's something that a lot of sports brands can learn from in terms of understanding how to kind of approach programmatic.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, because as like with the passionate, dedicated fan bases that, for example, you know, football teams will have in the Premier League, these people are already like, these guys are activated. They want in on the team. They have an emotional vested interest. They generally like a financial interest. So the first party data, the data that they have on their audiences is already, you know, they are in a really strong position to be able to use this. And we'll obviously keep developing as the channels grow, the audiences grow. But no, do you think that's one of the strengths of sport, is, you know, how just deeply passionate and invested fans can be in their teams?
Yeah, of course. I think that's obviously one of the cornerstones of sport as to why it's, you know, continuously grown over the years. You know, it's the storytelling behind not only the players or the teams, but like the heritage of certain areas as well. You know, like you can obviously see over in the US, you know, they're very passionate. They're very, very, you know, there's a huge fandom around specific sports. And over here in the UK with football, you know, when it comes to, you know, North London rivalries, you know, Arsenal, Tottenham, and things like that, you know, it's very much, they have an emotional connection to these teams. And, you know, if a brand or a rights holder can understand that and captivate all of that within their strategy for executing programmatic, so to speak, I feel like, you know, that helps build a strong foundation. Like I'll mention first party data whenever I speak about, you know, sports teams and programmatic, because I feel like it is the bedrock of being able to understand your fans, being able to know how to speak to them and resonate with them, and, you know, build that connection, because I feel like the most important relationship in a sport or business is between the fan and the property. And so you have to cultivate that and nurture that, and, you know, for it to grow even more in the future.
Yeah. I think there's a fine line there. It's funny, like, because it's you have this passion and this kind of built-in audience who are so invested in your property, but you don't want to constantly, like, you need to find the balance of treating them like a part of the team, part of the, you know, the business, part of the family, so to speak, but then not be sending them a push notification or an ad every 5 minutes to try and sell them a new shirt.
Of course.
But so it's like, I think using programmatic wisely is also a key thing, and like you say, that's knowing the audience as well.
Yeah, you know, frequency caps. You know, make sure that they're implemented, and it just goes back to knowing who your fans are, and, you know, knowing your family, your community. I think that without that knowledge, it's hard to effectively speak to a fan or consumer. And even if it's something like creative, which I feel is an under. The thing is, we understand the value of creative, but I feel like it does get lost in the conversation because there's focuses on data and inventory. Sometimes creative is left to the wayside. And when you are, you know, targeting different consumers at different stages of the funnel, you have to be able to speak to them in the right tone, and that even goes further when, you know, we're targeting different locations. You know, things like that. Are we speaking to them in the right tone, in the right language, and things like that? So all these things have to be taken into consideration, and you're going to learn over time, but it has to be a mindset that you have from the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that point's really interesting on the data and programmatic side. Is like, sport is still a local concern, but it is now a global concern. So Premier League team like Liverpool, Spurs, Arsenal, they have massive fan bases across the globe who have their own norms, they have their own ways of being a fan, and you kind of have to learn how to speak to those fans as well. So I think programmatic helps with that in terms of developing and being able to speak to those different global audiences at the right time.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's supposed to be one of those things that you kind of implement into your strategy early on. From the outset, again, it's all about testing and learning over time. But once you have that mindset to begin with, you're going to understand that, you know, the different creative, different audiences, you have to take that all into consideration when you're executing programmatic, because even with the different channels, because again, programmatic is very much omnichannel, you can't necessarily use the same creative in every channel, so therefore it needs to kind of be bespoke, so it's native to the channel that you're delivering in, and it resonates with the fan. So it's a lot of work, to be fair.
Yeah, definitely.
But it definitely is worthwhile when you see the results down the line.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, that's all we've got time for, Dave, but thanks so much for coming in and joining me. That was a great chat, and I know you've had an incredibly busy summer of sport at Two Circles, so thanks very much, and we'll keep chatting, but you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Cheers, man. Thank you.